Hello and welcome to the GI Nutrition Show. I'm Amy McCrea, registered dietitian and CEO of Grounded Root Nutrition. Today's topic is, do I need probiotics? This is a great question and one I get from almost every single patient that comes to me. But before I answer that question, let's just chat about what exactly probiotics are. So probiotics are these itty bitty microorganisms that help your gut, and some of them will help you produce neurotransmitters, which are the chemicals that we need in our brain. Other ones will actually help drown out bad pathogens, which sounds pretty cool. And others just are supportive of a really healthy gut microbiome. But do we really need them? That's the question. And while I wish I could just say yes or no, the real answer is it depends. So some conditions that we find probiotics to be useful in include gut dysbiosis, we've got depression and mental health, that's a really big one, H. pylori, immune rebalancing, vaginal health, as well as antibiotic use. So in all of these scenarios, your doctor, or Dr. Google for that matter, are most likely going to recommend probiotics. But the real question becomes, are they actually beneficial? So some things I like to consider before we dive into probiotics is, what does your stool test tell me? And there might be situations where we look at what your stool test comes back as, and that is not the first line of defense. At some point in time, I will likely recommend some type of a probiotic, and that will be sort of an interim stopgap. It's not a long-term maintenance type of a situation. And I use it as an interim to allow your good bacteria to replenish and restore themselves while preventing all of the bad bacteria that we've removed from regrowing. That sounds pretty important, right? But before I pick a probiotic for you, I want to also know your symptoms. Because kind of like I mentioned a little bit ago, there are some probiotics that might be really good. Let's just say if you're dealing with a lot of depression or anxiety, that are very, very targeted to be the strains that help your body make more of those neurotransmitters. That's important. There's also some strains that are going to help you sleep. Another really big important thing. And I also want to understand what conditions you're coming to me with, or what conditions you suspect you might have, or maybe you have a predisposition to, or there's a high incidence within your family of those. Because the strains of bacteria that we utilize change. So a lactobacillus, which is really common in a lot of probiotics, helps boost what we call our innate immune system. And the innate immune system is what kicks in when you have exposure to everyday viruses. So colds, flu, COVID, you name it. It is your first line of defense. We love that immune system. But then we also have your secondary immune system, and they're responsible for more of the resolution of all of these colds and all those. Well, they like the bifidobacterial strains better. So we really have to kind of weigh what's going on within your body. What are your T cells doing? What are your symptoms? Are you someone that has a high histamine response, lots of allergies? This is all going to come into play when we pick the probiotic specifically for you. So a skilled practitioner is going to have the ability to make this differentiation and truly pick a product that will support you the best. Now, I want you to know something. If you go out to, let's say, Amazon or the local health food store and you decide to select a probiotic, you might get to that shelf or do that Google search and be overwhelmed by the amount of stuff that's out there. The range is astronomical. I did a really quick search on Amazon, and I found products with anywhere from 1 billion to 120 billion little tiny microorganisms per capsule. 120 billion. That is a lot. So one thing I want you to know is that more is not necessarily better. You don't need to have that many microorganisms per capsule. It doesn't necessarily equate to being healthier or truly restoring your gut. Additionally, the number of strains in the probiotic also doesn't matter. So at a quick glance, I saw some that only had one. I use products that only have one. And while on Amazon, I found some up to 36. That is a lot of strains of bacteria. It's almost like, I don't know what's going to stick. Let's just throw it all and see what happens. And that's not the type of approach that I like to use with my patients. So I am not going to pull a 120 billion microorganisms per capsule probiotic for you. That's not going to do your body the best. Additionally, all the research shows that when you stop taking these probiotics, within 3 to 5 days, there's no evidence of them in your gut. Let me repeat that. All of these expensive probiotics that you're taking, if you stop taking them within 3 to 5 days, there's zero evidence of them actually being in your gut. So they don't seed your gut. Your gut is truly being seeded by the foods that you consume. Food first approach is the best way to repopulate your gut. We might use probiotics kind of as a supportive measure while we're working on bringing in all of the foods that you need. But if you truly focus on your diet, you're going to get really, really far. So what exactly does that mean? So I'd first like you to start with examining what about the colors of the foods that you're eating? Are you only eating green or you're only eating orange, but nothing else? That might be an issue. Or what if you only have brown and white colored foods and nothing else? That also might be an issue. So we really do want to look at the entire rainbow. So red, yellow, orange, green, purple and blue do kind of go together. And then the whites and the browns. They're all so, so important. So make sure throughout your week that you're pulling foods from different categories. This is easier to do if you have multiple people living in your households consuming the foods. If you're an individual, just one person in a household, I'll encourage you at least on a bi-weekly basis to eat the rainbow. And that way you get a little bit of variety and some rotation, but we also make sure that you're not wasting any food either. And I will remind you that frozen food is super awesome. Some people think maybe frozen food is the bottom of the totem pole, but it is by far not. Often, frozen foods sometimes they're actually better for you than the fresh counterpart. The reason being is foods that are frozen are actually picked at their peak in their prime. They're frozen. Sometimes they go through a flash heat process and then they're frozen. So kind of like a quick boil, if you will, just to kind of seal them in, and then they freeze them. It's a flash freeze, so it's super quick, preserves all of those nutrients. So sometimes frozen food's actually better than fresh food. That's kind of hard to believe, right? So don't be shy to go shop your freezer section. It is plentiful for you. Likewise, if you really need to have canned food just based on your shopping budget, go for it. It's still going to provide you with nutrition, and you're still going to get a lot of nutrients from those canned vegetables and canned fruits as well. So please utilize whatever you need. Just a word of caution though, with canned fruits, you also then might be consuming extra sugar. So really be mindful of what that fruit is in. If it's in fruit juice, you're going to have less sugar than if you find one that's actually in like a light syrup. So just be mindful of that. We touched on next episode. The next episode, we are going to touch on the removal phase. And in the removal phase, we want to be very, very mindful of our diet. And so utilizing those canned fruits, we might want to have a little bit of caution with. Frozen fruit might be a little bit better. And then after you've really been eating a rainbow diet for a couple months, then we will consider looking at fermented foods. Fermented foods are all the rage. People are like, oh, they're natural probiotics. Well, they are. They are loaded with awesome probiotics. But if that is the first place that you start, you're likely to experience some GI upset. So we first need to make sure we've got that rainbow diet and we've got some fruits and vegetables and fibers coming in. And then we can add some of these fermented foods. So you might think of kombucha or kimchi, sauerkraut, or kefir. They're all fantastic. And when it comes to kefir, you can even consider making your own. Same with kombucha too. It can be a fun project if you've got little ones around. They also enjoy participating. So they can be a great thing for you to look at. One thing I need you to remember is that if we don't fix your diet, you're likely to relapse. So I love probiotics. They can be a great stopgap, and I am going to use them sometimes, especially if I have a patient on antibiotics, probably going to put them on Saccharomyces boulardii. And that is the only probiotic you will hear me mention today specifically. I love Saccharomyces boulardii. It is a yeast, but it is one that we actually don't grow within our body. And so it's an opportunistic yeast that comes in and eats everything that shouldn't be in there. So when you stop taking it, it's gone like almost immediately, but it does so many beneficial things. So if you're taking antibiotics, it can help prevent a yeast infection. Likewise, if you're taking antifungals, it can help prevent a bacterial infection. So I love Saccharomyces boulardii. It is the only probiotic you'll hear me name specifically today on this show. All of the other ones I keep tucked away in my back pocket, and we use them when appropriate, as appropriate, throughout the treatment process. So first we start with our gut protocol. We're going to get rid of those nasty parasites that are in there. We're going to make sure you have a nice supportive diet, and we might add some probiotics in along the way. So let's not get the cart before the horse, though. Let's talk about that entire removal phase and what exactly that looks like in my 5 roots approach. So stay tuned for the next session. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Please visit my website, groundedrootnutrition.com, to learn more about how I can partner in your health journey, or contact me directly at hello@groundedrootnutrition.com. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you again soon.